Shut up and sit down.
In today's video, we're going to install the stainless steel manifolds from MarineTorq. I've already gone through and done all the work. I've documented it. I'm going to present it to you guys. I'll do this in the video. My hair is a mess, so first things first, I need to fix this. All better. How easy was that? So this video, we go over how to do the stainless steel manifolds from MarineTorq. I'm going to take us out to the boat. I'm going to start walking us through the process. I'm not going to go into every single fine detail. There's something that are simple. You guys know how to screw in a bolt. You guys know how to sand something down. I'll give a couple demonstrations and some tips and tricks along the way. And then we're done. We'll have a beautiful installation and a great way of improving the performance, the durability, and the overall appearance of your boat. All right, so before we put on the new manifolds, we have to take the old manifolds off. And we need to collect a couple parts off the old manifolds as well. So we have the manifold here. Attached to it is this bracket which holds the engine computer, the ECU, and this is the interface for like a meter reader, so you can go in and change the settings. And then we'll need to get the oil filter remote removed. We'll need to get the sensors off it. There's a tube right there we need to get on it, and then these two tubes right here are going to go down to the new manifolds. We may need to get longer tubes. The new manifold has it on the side, like right about here. This has it up front here, so it may not reach. That's okay. If we need to get longer tubes, that's why we'll get everything off. Get it on the new manifolds. We're going to also need to clean off the old gasket. We'll have to scrub the old gasket off, make it look real clean, and I'll walk through that process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the easy stuff. I've already come out here and I've soaked all my bolts in WD-40. You can use any sort of penetrating oil you want. I'm old-fashioned, use WD-40, but there's lots of penetrating oils you can use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this bracket. I'm going to take it all the way off. You can detach these because the new manifolds are chrome and very beautiful. So I want to paint this. I got some Rust-Oleum chrome. I'm going to take these things off and paint this a matching chrome so it looks real nice. I'm not going to paint this just yet, but I will need to detach this and get it ready. I also want to make sure that these holes and these holes here line up on the new manifold because it was handmade, so there's possible mistakes were made. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to loosen these bolts. Bracket off. The bracket was holding the adapter for the reader. Let's get it right here. I got the sensor. This just pops off. This is the temperature sensor for the manifold. And then here's the ECU computer. I'll leave that right there where it's safe. I'm going to take this back to the bench. I'm going to sand it down, and I'm going to spray paint it chrome as much as possible to get to match the manifold better. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen these brackets holding on this piece here. I'm going to detach it from the riser up here. And I'm going to loosen these bolts. The riser should pop up. I'm going to pull it out away from the exhaust going down to the Y. I've got everything disconnected. I got the 4 bolts off. I've got the sensor unplugged. I haven't unscrewed it yet because I'm going to put this in a new one. And it's going to be kind of sticky because it has a little bit of pressure. So pull it off like that. And let's try to work it out. I'm going to turn it a little bit, try to come out of this, and I'll work it out of this. You can see right here, if you look down, you see the old gasket, and you see a lot of this build up and rust, and you see how clogged up it is. This is way past due for redoing. These should be wide open and water should be flowing through there. So I had some hot spots. This was causing the hot spots and overheat. So that's very hard for water to travel through. So, but the good news is you'll see normally a real bad one along the hole here. That's where the rust and the water will go into the exhaust and get in the manifold. I'm not seeing that here, which is really good news, which means it's likely the cylinders are undamaged. It's likely they're in great shape still. We got to this before it was needed for damage, so that's relief. This is your first moment where you're like, oh, all right, I don't need to replace the entire cylinder block here. I can do the real nice exhaust. So now I'm going to work this out and just disconnect this piece. A little advice I recommend, once you have it off while you're working, put a shop towel in the hole, just kind of like that. It won't go all the way in, and it'll stop stuff from going down into the cylinders. This goes right into the cylinders there. You want to make sure nothing gets in there. Little particles of dust or flammable things really don't affect it, but if you get a piece of metal in there, it may not be able to work its way out to the exhaust and be just bouncing around forever and ever and ever, damaging the cylinder. So be very careful. We'll do the same thing when we take the manifolds themselves off. We want to make sure the holes are covered while we're working on it, so stuff doesn't get down in there. So we've got the first riser off, and look at that rusty mess. Rust, 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 rust. Unfortunately, you see here, I don't see any signs of water getting through the gasket, which is really, really good. That means that the engine itself is not affected yet by this rust. You see pieces of rust down inside here. Clean that out, get those out of there, because I don't want that to be any part of our next installation at all. So we get some WD-40, penetrate that rust for a while. I will come back and scrub that out before I put a new one on. But this is off. The only piece I need off it now is the actual sensor for the temperature. And what you can use for that, if you look at my tool set here, I got the Craftsman spark plug set. I can use the longer spark plugs here. I think this is the right one. It's an 11. I think it's 11. 12. Let's see. This way you can get in there and just grab that sensor. So I'm going to reuse the sensor, obviously. It's still good. Get readings on my boat from it. And there's the sensor. Keep that for the new manifold. So here's the old, just the riser, not the manifold. And here's the riser manifold combo from MarineTorq. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start measuring, make sure that these two holes match these two holes, because I want this is going to mount where the oil was, so you can see. I like these transparent rulers because you can see through them. And the other thing you can do is you can just pick it up and put it side by side. So they line up nicely. You can see how disgusting this was on the inside. It's all rusty and crazy inside of there. So it was past due for replacement. When I bought a used boat, that's what happens. Steel bracket, I've sanded it down, get all the rust off. I'm putting on some metallic finish Rust-Oleum on it. It's going to stay on top of it. Get a nice even coat. What I'm trying to do is get this to match the manifold when it's possible. Instead of being a black piece, I'm going to be another chrome looking piece. It won't be reflective, like, but it'll be covered by the CPU and the sensor adapter, so I'm not sure about it. Okay, we're back in the engine compartment. We're going to take off the actual manifold itself. The only thing attached to the manifold right now is this hose. It's kind of hard to get to with all the stuff in the way, so I'm actually going to take it off and I can detach it once it's taken off. There's nothing else attached to it right now. Everything else just flows back to the engine. You can check, there's a spot back here, an adapter that allows waste to come out. It's not attached to anything. And there's 6 bolts along here. I'm going to take them out with this. I'm just going to do one at a time. I'm going to leave 2 on all the way so I can slowly back the whole thing out together. I want to be very careful. I don't want to just yank it off. I don't want the gasket falling down inside of the engine if it's all falling apart. I don't know the condition yet. It's probably not the best condition because it's always been on too long. All right. I got the first bolt all the way out, and I want to take a minute to show how clean it is. This is a very, very good sign. No rust. You can see the previous technician used the antifreeze on it properly. So this is a very properly maintained bolt here, which means water is not leaking down onto the engine. That's very, very good. So I got 5 more of these to pull from this side, and they should be equally as good. Again, all good signs. Looks like we got to the problem before it became a catastrophe. So the third bolt we got out actually had a fair amount of rust on it, so that's not good. Hopefully it just went down from maybe, I think what's happening, if you look back here, you see there's rust on top of here. I think the leak was coming from inside of here with the rust going down this way. I saw some water coming out here at one point, so I don't believe any got in the engine, but you don't want to see this in your bolts. You want to see like this or like this, but you don't want to see this. You don't want to see that much rust. We've got only the 2 end bolts left. This is the kind of the tricky part. It's easier if you have somebody helping you. One person can hold this still while the other person removes the bolts, and then you can take the whole thing out. So I think I'm going to have my partner get down inside of there, remove the last bolt, and I'll take the whole thing away. Partner was able to crawl in there and get it loose. I'm going to take this hose off now. Like I said before, I may end up replacing this hose entirely. I'm not sure it's long enough, but it's just a pretty simple Goodyear 3/4 inch radiator hose. Alright. Come on out. Go ahead and pull this out and get my cloths ready. This thing is very, very heavy. I have to take a look at this. Alright, so. But, oh, water? Yes, okay, water can come out. I'm going to drain this down into the bilge. There we go. That's fine. Alright, so the good news. The gasket's in really good shape. I don't see any signs of water penetration, so this is really good news. The gasket is actually one solid piece, so this is excellent. That's almost reusable. So the sensitive part of the boat, which is right here, you see it's a little bit of rust along the edges here. This is probably just environmental rust, just from salt in the air and whatnot. Look at this draining out through here. That's kind of cool. It didn't get down into the actual compartment. And you can see why I decided to change this. Look at the rest of the end here. My belief is that the exhaust tube going down there, the elbow, had a leak. And it was just leaking surface on this. Not a big deal. You know, nobody really cares. But this is now loose. So we're going to take a look at where it connects right here, and you'll see very good shape. Got a little bit of rust to knock off right there. Again, it's surface rust. It's right there. It's not going into the manifold or anything, not going into the cylinders. The spark plugs, I already checked them, but now's the best time to change them if you plan on changing them. These are, the ones that are in there are the iridium ones. So they're 100,000 mile spark plugs, no need to change them. But if I wanted to, you see how easy they are to get to. So if you decide to do this, do the spark plugs too. You just get it done, because these manifolds will last forever, and get iridium spark plugs, they'll last forever as well. We've got the manifold off. We're taking the bench just to do a quick examination. Look down inside, see if you see any. There's going to be like carbon buildup as the exhaust goes, so you expect that. But you just don't want to see any rust. And we're really not seeing any rust. This is good. Just like the top where the risers came out, there's some clog going here, and this is where the rusting usually starts. I almost want to say this is like something got sucked up and jammed in here. It feels tough. Like normally pieces of rust you can just chip out. I almost wonder if they put RTV sealant and they put like way too much on here, and it leaked over to here a little bit, like some hybrid, you know, some, I don't know. It's just better this is out. We don't want this in there. That's also some of this feels rubbery. What that might, that's part of the gasket. This piece right here, this may be part of the impeller falling apart from a previous owner. I got a new impeller on there now. It's a little rusty and hard to tell, but it's just all clogged up. Poor water flow means poor cooling, which means poor performance. What I have here is my new gasket, and all I want to do now is just make 100% sure everything's going to line up. I left it wrapped. It comes wrapped in this packaging, and it's going to go in just like that, and you'll see looks good. I think it's going to line up. You don't want to go forward. I trust MarineTorq and their engineers and everything, but you just want to make 100% sure. You always want to check before you go forward with the job. So the next step is I'm going to run where these bolts went into the engine. I'm going to run bolts all the way in and all the way out, make sure it's nice and clean there. The bolts came out pretty clean and easy. Here's the ones you see, and they did a good job of using the anti-seal, which anti-seize, which again I'll be using when I put this on. Marine grade non-metallic anti-seize. Prevents rusting, keeps the bolts tight, prevents water intrusion down in there. So it's a very good thing to have. So we're going to start prepping this for installation. There's two pieces we need to install. First is going to be the sensor, and then the sacrificial diode. You'll see the replaceable diode has the screw on it, so we're going to make sure that's nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is the water flowing through here is not high pressure water. It's not even the same pressure your house has. It's just kind of flowing through at a nice steady pace. So these seals, just seen before on the old system, nice plumber's tape is enough to seal it. You don't really need an anti-seize or anything like that. Just think of this as like you're working on the faucet in your house. You don't need it's not a high pressure system. Because this is an oxygen sensor right here, it measures the temperature of the water flowing through there. It's better not to use the anti-seize. The anti-seize can interact with this and cause some bad readings. So we'll simply use some plumber's threaded tape, and this will go in here, this will go in here, and then we'll wrench them down tight. That way, it just needs to be watertight. It's not high. Again, it's not a high pressure system. It's just a low pressure water flowing through there. So on the bottom of this, just gonna wrap it right. You don't want to do too much because it'll cause some seizing in there. We're just gonna, and you want to wrap it opposite the direction you're going to turn, so that way when it's screwing in, you're kind of tightening it down. And we're going to take our toolkit here. Last time we decided this was a 12, right? 13. We're just going to hand tighten it just like you're doing plumbing at home. Don't force it, don't go too tight. The sensor is delicate. It just needs to be watertight here. So don't, you need to be muscle man on this. Just keep going until you get a nice seat on it. So for this one, make sure you don't do the entire thing. You want to do just a little bit of it to make a seal. The reason being is you still want this metal touching that metal. You want the metal touching metal. That allows the electricity flowing out. That's really what this is doing. It's let electricity leave your boat through the easiest path, which in this case is going to be this piece right here. This is the lowest resistance. Just going to go a little bit around the edge here. That way, about halfway covered. On here, just to make sure the water is not leaking out. And that's all that white tape's doing, is keeping the water from leaking out. And MarineTorq says replace these every 6 months. So they're easy to get to. These big giant bolts on the side. It's bigger than 1 inch. I tried a 1 inch. That's the biggest tool I had. So I got to use my adjustables here. And just nice and tight like that, like you're doing plumbing, and that'll hold. Alright, so I've had the WD-40 sitting here for a while, and I'm just scraping out the rust on the rubber here. You can hear a little bit of the rust. I'm just kind of scraping out very gently. I don't want this rust to end up on the new manifold riser combo. So I'm just going to go around. Going down the top, it looks like it just, when the water would sit, from whoever owned this boat before probably didn't rinse it out properly every time. So it happens. So I'm just going to get nice and clean here. Use more WD-40, take a towel to it. I want this to be spotless because I'm putting a brand new, beautiful, multi-$1,000 thing in here. I want to take care of it. Now we need to prep the engine for the install. So we'll take these clothes off for a second. Just sit here, nice and safe and clean. What we're going to do is a couple things. I've got my putty knife here. I've got my sandpaper if I need it. We want to make a nice, smooth mating surface. So I got this beautiful 100, makes it real smooth. I got 60 to kind of, if I need to. Volvo recommends 80. I got the two opposite, 60 and 100. So there's a little bit of 60 and a little 100. It averages a 180. There you go, right? And then I got the shop vac out here. And I like this shop vac for this purpose, if little tiny particles get inside the combustion chamber, it's not the end of the world, not the worst thing possible. If they're small enough, they'll get ejected out through the normal combustion process. But anything bigger, you want to make sure you get out. So this is cool because it fits right in the hole there. And you can make nice suction and suck out any particles that might be in there. So I can put it there. While I'm sanding, I'll use the vacuum. I'll sand right into the vacuum, and I'll catch the particles in here. I'm going to do one more pass on this stuff here. You see a little bit of rust form because I let it sit for a couple hours and right here in the water, so that's fine. Same thing, we're going to take the 100 grit, grab my shop vac, I'm going to vacuum while I sand. Bolts sent to us, and you just run them into the slots to make sure they go all the way down. Make sure they sit. They should hit bottom nice and smoothly. That's good. They won't hit bottom when you actually install it, but to make sure it runs all the way in clean and clear. And we'll go through and do all of these. The next step is they send it with these little mounting bolts. You'll put these on the very ends here. They don't need to go in too far. A couple turns. I'll do in the very end here. This makes the installation much easier. You put the gasket on these, and then you can hand tighten all the other bolts and then replace those. So the next step is the gasket. There's our gasket. Just gonna put it on. Well, start and push it up against the engine. Make sure it sits flat. You can look around at each of the exhaust ports. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the manifold in here and just push it up against these bolts, and then I can put it in place. All right, we're going to prep the interface surface here. I've got a block of wood to stay nice and flat. I've got my 100 grit. They recommend 80, but a little higher, a little smoother. Just going to go across it. Go across like that, make sure it's nice and flat. And then what you can do is you can take your straight edge, walk it along. Like the parts in the middle here don't matter that much, but really around the bolts and around the exhaust surface, make sure it's nice and flat. This looks good. Make sure you see any air below your ruler. Really looking for anywhere it might leak. This looks good. So then when you're done, press the old shop vac, and we're just going to vacuum it out. This is ready to be put on the boat. Here's my partner. She's down inside the engine compartment helping me. This is easier to do with two persons. What we're going to do is we're going to put the manifold on, and then if you want to demonstrate what you're going to do, once the manifold's on, we've got these bolts to kind of hold it in place, so we don't have to use our hands to hold it. So she's down there. I'm going to slide the manifold on, and then she'll put that bolt in place. And then I'll do this one over here. Then we can hand tighten all the other bolts and then just do these last. Before we put it on, I'm going to apply a tiny amount of ultra copper RTV exhaust gasket maker, just the tiniest bit. Their manual says apply a tiny bit between the manifold and the gaskets, just do a little bit to kind of help improve the seal. And there's our tiny bit, just enough to kind of assist in the setting of the gasket. We have the manifold installed, hand tightened right now. When you buy this, they send you this tool, this bent, open-ended combination wrench here to kind of work the tools down. It's okay. I recommend you get something like this, make it real long like this, let it have the adjustable end, and I like the ratcheting on this too. And I'll show you why. If you look down inside of there, you can see the bolt. I can get that long wrench down in there and tighten it. The pattern you want to use is start in the middle, work your way out. The long bolt's nice because it allows you to use a torque adapter, and then you can torque these down to specific poundages slowly, starting in the middle and working your way out. No project is incomplete without discoveries and issues. So this is the bellows connector. The rubber bellows connector goes between the exhaust elbow down to the Y down there. This is a just standard rubber exhaust. One is missing one of these. But I noticed it has a crack in it. At least it's starting to have a crack, so I might as well replace it while I got everything loose. Where'd the crack go? I just saw it. There it is. I see the crack right there. Not good, which is fine. These are pretty cheap. Other thing I noticed is you'll see how the new one sits a little bit taller than the old one. It's a tiny bit higher up. I probably should have got a slightly shorter one, but tall is good because it pulls the heat away from the engine better. All that means is that the gap right there is now bigger. So this little guy doesn't really cover the gap nicely. So I'm just going to measure, and I'll get two. Might as well get two, one for each side, and make it good all the way across. So here's the factory one, and I'll put this project on pause for a minute, and I'll get the two of these. I can keep going. I can start this side. This will just be the last piece as I wait for it to be shipped in. So I'll order it today. Now that that side's done, we can start taking this side out. I'm going to order the extra rubber joint for the exhaust, but it's not going to stop me from moving forward. That's a very minor piece, not a big deal. So I'll go ahead and start taking this piece off. What I'm going to do is remove the electronics, which for this piece is this. You'll see there's a breathing tube right here. I'm going to take that off. I want that on the new. You can see where that goes. Right through here, right down there. I want to make sure that goes onto the new manifold. I've sanded this down, and I'm going to paint this using spray paint. I'm just going to put a box down there, set this in the box, and then I can spray paint. The other option would be, that way it would be it'd be chromish, like the paint I had here, which looks better than the black. So at least it'll match a little better. If I wanted to get this dipped, I'd have to disassemble it. So take this stuff off, this out, take these. It should be a big pain. But I can tape this up and spray paint it, and it'll look much better than this. Because if you're gonna buy something this expensive, this nice, might as well get the rest of the engine. I've already ordered a new thermostat housing that's coming in the next video. I'll probably upgrade this. There's several options available out there to upgrade your flame arrestor. This is the factory one. This one's kind of beat up, kind of dirty. I could clean it, but for $100 I can get a larger one. I wanted to wait until these were installed to see how much space I had. I don't have a ton with the computer back here, so I can't get really any bigger, the bus box. But I can get a nice chrome looking one. But I might see about cleaning this up too. I got several options here. It's nice to have options. I got this side off. I've already tucked in my protection here. I'll show you again. Rust. It's like pieces of impeller in there maybe. This is not doing a very efficient job here. But the good news is you'll see there's really no rust along the edge there. So no penetration into the engine for the water. So good to hear that and see that. Got the entire piece off. The elbow is actually in really good shape. Looks way better than the other one did. So I might replace just the one. This one's in fantastic shape. Again, rust. Everywhere there's rust. We don't want that. So we're going to clean this up. I'm probably going to spray paint that too because it's going to go on the new manifold. Alright, manifold's off. Gasket's in real good shape. Still one piece, came right off. Very little areas, maybe here a little bit area concern, maybe it's a little tiny bit right there. A little pitting right there. But it doesn't seem to be rust affected pitting. Just like we saw before. Rust, 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 rust. We can look at where it sits. Pretty good. A little pitting right there. Maybe we'll sand that flat. Looks pretty good. And you can see that pitting right across the middle there. Tiny, tiny bit. Not a big amount. And a little rusty around the bolt in that one, but overall very, very good, especially considering the age of the boat. Very, very good. The next phase is gather the parts we wanted. I did notice when I took the temperature sensor off, the whole sensor came with it. It wasn't screwed down all the way or something. So I'll test this one, make sure it's in good shape. I'm sure it's fine. Didn't get any negative readings on the computer. Computer will tell you, hey, I don't see this sensor, so it'll let you know. All right, a couple things going on here. I've got WD-40 kind of soaking in right here to help me get this off. Rust is kind of built up in there, but you see this one's in real good shape, so I want to reuse that one. I need to get this connector off, so I'm going to use the little wrench there, and you can see what MarineTorq has already given me what I need right there. So I'm going to clean this out. There's some like connector coverage in there and get that cleaned out real good, and then I'm going to connect that piece to it. Got it off, and look, guess what? Even more rust. Rust everywhere, rust all the stuff. So I'm going to clean this out, make this look real shiny and pretty for our new connection. All right, I've got my little right angle nipple here ready to paint. I've put a cover on the nipple in there. I've got a bolt just a little bit on it. I'm going to the rest taped off. I'm going to spray paint again with my bright Rust-Oleum chrome color. Okay, not really important. It's a brass connector. I said copper earlier, but it's a brass connector. Not a big deal. I just wanted to match as best as possible, so we're doing this. So just a quick little spray paint on this, make it look nice. All right, using the exact same process for the second one. For the starboard side one, we got the port side one put in. What we're doing now is we're taking the oil can relocator and we're painting it to match the colors over here. You can see where I painted the bracket for the computer. It looks much better than straight black. It matches way better. We're doing the same thing over here. I didn't want to disconnect it because it'd make a big oil mess, so I got these cardboard boxes kind of holding in place, protecting the motor while I just did a quick little light spray paint on it. It's going to dry nice and it matches much better than the stainless steel. So this union between the elbow and the Y for the exhaust is a little bit too short with the new application. It's 4 inches. So I ran out to local boat store, got some good stuff. I actually got the stuff that has the wire in it, so a little extra strength, a little stronger, high quality stuff. This is actually higher quality than what the stuff Volvo actually has. So this would be, well, tiny upgrade. But I do want to say, make sure you buy local. Try not to use the chain stores. Support the local stores whenever possible. So I'm going to cut this down. They told me 2 feet, give or take. And I'm going to cut it down to 7 inches. And then I'm going to take the 7 inches and replace this. I already measured how much I need, and 7's perfect. So let's get cutting. Cutting is done. I use a simple little skill saw here. Cut right through it. This is from the store, but you can see my cut. It's pretty clean there, using the saw proper. Looks pretty good. It doesn't have to be totally flat or perfect, just did it by hand. But this is going to give us plenty to work with and have a nice, secure fit. Alright, so pro tip on how to do this. Get the manifold in. I've rotated the elbow up out of the way. And you can see where it's going to go down there. I need to connect this to that. I've scrubbed off big clumps of rust to make sure it's a nice smooth sliding on. I'm going to slide it on down too far, rotate this down, line them up, then pull it back up. And then I can tighten down the new connectors. So we'll work through this. I'm going to lube that up pretty good too, so that the new exhaust hose is very lenient on going up and down with me. Both are installed. Everything's mounted in place. The last piece we're going to do before we test is we're going to replace the hose that runs from the thermostat housing down to each manifold. The prior hose wasn't quite long enough to reach the new spot is, so we've got some high temp water heat exchanger hose. We're going to cut it to the perfect shape and we're going to install that now. Since we're going to cut a custom piece, we're going to follow this around. What we want is it to have not touch the manifold. This might get some temperature to it. It should. We want the rubber touching it. The rubber can take the heat, but it's better if it doesn't touch. If I use the OEM one, it would just kind of run straight here, rub right here all the time. So I got this one running down through here. And what I want it to do is I want the connection is to kind of hold it just like that, so it's not touching anything. So I'm going to cut this right about here, and I'll feed it on there and tighten it down. As far as the red coloring, whenever you do high performance anything, you got options in colors beyond just the black. We got red and blue. You see, like my ignition cables are blue down there. So whenever you do high performance, you've got options. I went with red because the engine was red. I want to kind of match it, kind of give it a sense of synergy to it. I thought about doing the blue, maybe do a neat call out, but I went with red in this case. The first one's put in. Nice smooth play, no kinks. Feeds right in. It's not in the way of anything else. Just kind of there all by itself. And I'll put this cable right back on top of it where it was. When I replace the alternator, upcoming video, I will run this through here. Whoever did the last didn't run it through there, so I'll make that part of that process. All right, now I'll do the other side. Second one, a little advice on this. Try to make sure it's not touching the header there. I got it slightly above it, kind of floating above it there. Again, you want it to kind of flow around, not touch anything. Get back there. And get it below the alternator too. So that way you can get to the electronics and replace this easier if you want to. Take care of yourself. Also work on your future projects. Have to be ready for that. But it's better if the pipes really don't touch anything, just to avoid anything that might get hot. You want the water being cold at this point. It's getting past the thermostat here. This should be cold water here going into here. You don't want to get heat from somewhere else and comes in here not as cold as possible. That's ideally, you want the water as cold as possible when it gets to this point, so maximum cooling efficiency. If you have an inboard motor, this is an upgrade you must do someday. I've got a place I can hook up a garden hose and run it right down into the motor itself. On the end of the garden hose, I put this little valve too, so I can turn it off and on from here. I don't have to run all the way down to the hose connection. So this allows me to flush the engine and really help take care of it. I'll show you where it comes in from the inside. Right there is where it comes in from the outside. It's bringing fresh garden hose water in right now. It goes into that tube right there and goes right to the impeller. So right now the engine's not warm, so the impeller's not turning because the engine's off and the thermostat's not open. But all I'm doing now is just running a water test. Keep an eye out for drips. Let it run for a few minutes. See if anything drips. The water's not even gotten this far yet. It hasn't gotten past the thermostat yet. It hasn't gotten past the impeller yet. So I'm going to start the motor here in just a second. I'm going to run over and I'm going to keep an eye out for water leaks. And places you want to check, you want to check where the water goes in there. You want to check that union and that union there, the unions you worked on. Make sure that it's flowing through nice and smooth. No water's coming out, getting down to the bilge. So I'll start the motor up here in just a second. So before you do your first test, turn on your fan. Just in case there's an exhaust leak, you want to make sure that that's getting vented out. Something may have gone wrong, or maybe you may mess something up. So have that going. We're going to start this up and check for leaks. Alright, we've got the motor running. I'm going to let it run for a minute and I'll run some heat checks on different spots. Both sides, the end nodes are leaking. I got a small drip leak right there. Gotta fix that. Headers. That's a good operating temperature. Laser bounced right off it. Too tiny. So I may not be using the cowl here anymore. You'll see it hits right there. It's a little bit more forward. Then I could probably trim this across through here. Trim this right across here. Maybe it'll sit if I want to keep using this. So it's decision time. This is not really a vital piece of the engine per se. It's just kind of in there. Plus side, if I decide to not use it, I can take this diamond piece here off. All it does is hold that in place. So a couple options here. I'll leave like this for now. And I'll probably end up just leaving it off. But we're done. No more leaks. A couple of things I want to point out. The bolts themselves, with the wrench, they give you a pretty easy to get to, but there's no real way to use a torque wrench on them. I can only use a torque wrench on the very end ones here. There's no way to reach, even if a socket wrench of any site, no matter how long, it's blocked by the actual cowl itself. You see that one? I can't get to them. So I would have liked to have seen, for improvement, maybe just a tiny little cutout, a little up and down, allow you to get a torque wrench in there, so you know you're torquing them all down to the proper specifications. I would have liked to get it's bigger than an inch. That's the largest I had, both in socket and in regular wrenches, so I'd use an adjustable. So I would like to get a socket for that, make it easier to get it out. Thinking of anything else I would have changed on these a little bit. Again, I would have had that maybe set a little farther back. You see they got space to kind of move back if they wanted to. I know it's handmade, so it's not going to be perfect, but I can't use the cowl now. So yeah, that's not a huge deal breaker. I'm not thrilled with the way the Rust-Oleum spray paint came out. See, kind of spotted. Maybe it's the solder air around here. It was better on this one. In hindsight, I think what I would have done is I would have timed this around an oil change, because to take this off, you lose oil. So better just do it around an oil change. And then while I'm doing the oil change, take this to a place that can dip it and get it dipped in chrome or stainless steel or some site to make it really match nicely. This is better than what was there, and I'm happy with the way it came out. But it could have been much better. Same thing with this thing. It's just, you can see there's some pitting from the rust from before, the Rust-Oleum. I painted onto it. It's going to prevent it. See, there's no pitting up here. The pitting here when it's kind of exposed. So when I painted that, but that's on me. It's not on MarineTorq. I really like the way these run. The install was pretty easy, time consuming, because you're taking stuff out, you're taking your time, you're cleaning. So all in, it's about 2 days worth of work to get it 100% the way I wanted it. Taking my time. There was some delays. I had to custom make those things right there because the new gap's a little bit longer. I would have preferred maybe if MarineTorq had let us know that, hey, these sit a little bit higher than the old ones. It's not me, it's not on them. When I install these, I would have had them go up and down instead. A couple times standing them better. That one was really a pain in the butt to get on. That one was easy. Look at that shine and listen to that growl. This thing's working great. All the leaks are taken care of. Back down tight. Ready for river test, water tests. Beautiful. Beautiful job, MarineTorq. Let's do the water test. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Out the initial test ride with the manifolds. Looking and sounding real good. Temperature's hovering right around 140. Air temp's 50. Wind temp's probably 30. I'm freezing out here. Won't be a terribly long drive. So we had the boat running about an hour. Now I'm flushing it. Always flush your manifolds, even in fresh water. Flush them out. So just looking for more leaks. Bone dry down there. No leaks. And then let's do some heat tests. So nice. .140, 150s are all good readings. A little manifold there. Oh, I think it was running smoothly. Check the fuel pump. It was getting cooled off. It ran great. It really did. And it sounds really good. You want to listen for like ticking or exhaust sounds, like a sucking sound. All in all, very, very good. Very happy with these. Thank you, MarineTorq. Test went great. Boat ran fantastically. Couldn't ask for anything better. Very happy with the MarineTorq manifolds. A couple final thoughts. It would be ideal if they found a way to get just a torque wrench onto the bolts. Not a big thing, you can use the extension like I did to get it in there. It'd be better just to have a direct connection with the bolts. That'd be nice. Other than that, it's a great design. It's wonderful. If you're due for new manifolds, do these. Do the stainless steel. It's all benefits, there's no downside to it whatsoever. I know you say, well, it's so much more expensive. You're gonna buy the iron manifolds every 3 to 5 years, especially if you're on salt water. If you're not on salt water, what do you do with a boat? Go get on salt water. The stainless steel ones can last forever if taken care of properly. Definitely do that. The customer service is excellent at MarineTorq. Very happy with the overall appearance. There's really no downside to it. Definitely do it. I'm really happy with what they've done. I'm really happy with how they take care of me. I worked with Mark over MarineTorq, fantastic rep. They're not paying me to do this. I'm so happy of what came of this. Follow along the project. Leave some feedback if you have some ideas for another video. I got a lot more work I want to do on this boat. The SS, that's what C said. Sorry, the Life on Your Office fans, as you can tell from the t-shirt earlier in the video. But we'll be doing more of these, more projects, more upgrades. I bought this boat used. I'm going to redo the entire thing, and it's going to be amazing when I'm done. So like and subscribe for more videos with the boat. My wife's got a Jeep, I've got a Ram. We're going to do a lot of work on these vehicles. We're going to work in the house. We're going to do some activities at church. We're going to do all sorts of things that are a lot of fun. So subscribe to my channel and you'll see many more of these manly videos.